My name is Romano Bonifazzi. I'm the founder and CEO of Solgenia. Hello. I can count you. Yeah. And I'm going to introduce you today about our platform. Platform name is Power, and it's a tools that allow developers, providers, cloud brokers, anyone that need to jump into this cloud world to do business with the cloud, to monetize their cloud. So what is the cloud really today? And if we look at what is going on the cloud today, is the fact that really the cloud is sold mostly on a subscription model. So it's not exactly a utility cost for the infrastructure and everything. Now we transform this into a subscription model. That is very similar, because if you think in a telecommunication space, you are paying for your phone only when you are using your phone, not when you are just subscribing them. There are subscription models, there are flat fee, but it's just a part of the strategy. It's not the unique way that you can use your phone. So I don't think so. I do not have anything to increase here. The guys said it for me, so I think that they don't want us to disturb. No, I think they don't want us to disturb. Yeah. I'm trying to speak a little bit close. Maybe this is better. So, okay. So in a real utility cloud, the challenge is, okay, but if you are a user, the point is, okay, I'm in a subscription model, but are I really paying for what I use? I'm not going to use my application today. I still pay my subscription. If you are a provider, at that point, having this subscription model is directly related with the growth of your infrastructure. So you are facing issues to define how you can implement a more profitable cloud business model. At the same time, if you are a CIO today, you may start wondering, okay, who is using the cloud? If I go to the cloud, especially if I go to the public cloud, how I can control the expenditure of the budget of my IT. So this is a challenge that we are seeing today in the cloud. And this is why we designed, and we were thinking, okay, but there is a better model than subscription. There is something that can allow the user to increase the scalability and lower the cost for the services so that they can really pay what they're using it. There is a model that makes these things a little bit more flexible, more scalable, more self-service, more ubiquitous. And we believe, yes, there is. It's what we call the consumption cloud. So what is consumption cloud? It's really what is the cloud is supposed to be. So pay just what you use. So I know it sounds a little bit stupid maybe in some cases, but it's the reality, because if you look again around, what are you going to pay, and how you are going to consume the cloud? By subscription. That is not exactly a utility computing. So for us, consumption cloud means connect the user and the provider in a different way. So allow them to build a parameterizable Word application and consumption based services that they really will pay what exactly they're going to use. And this is why we designed our platform that is named Power. It's not Power, it's Power. That it's built around 4 different key components that enable to really focus on consuming the cloud and metering and monitoring the consumption of the cloud. So Power is built around 4 different components. I'm going to speak about that in a few minutes, and I will give you a little bit overview. The internet connection here is not the best. A lot of people is connected, but we will see it. So what is Power? Power, it's a cloud management platform. So this is by the Gartner definition. Power is under the radar of Gartner as a cloud management platform. The cloud management platform itself, it's built around 3 big part of a unique stack that goes from virtualization to capacity planning up to metering, monitoring, and billing. Power is exactly focused on the top of the stack, so on metering, monitoring, and billing. It's based on our own HPC lab. So we have an HPC lab, high performance computing lab, that built this technology that now is also a patent solution. How Power works. So this is what I was mentioning before. Power is built around 4 huge server components. The store or catalog. What is a store or catalog? We need to define a little bit where Power is going to be used. If you're going to use Power in a public cloud scenario, then it means that the store will become really something where you're going to sell your cloud offering. What it means, cloud offering? It means everything. It can be a software application. It can be also your infrastructure as a service or platform as a service. We don't care what you're going to sell or use in our store. So it's something that you define. The platform itself helps you to sell what you want to sell on the cloud, no matter if it's a storage online, backup online, or an application, whatever it is. If we are instead in a private cloud scenario, the store model really becomes an enterprise catalog. What is an enterprise catalog? It's a little bit new, but try to think for a second what's happened today when a new employee joins to a company. There is someone from IT that needs to go, to the desktop, to the workplace, configure the application, provision the application, whatever it is, and install the software maybe. In this case, an enterprise catalog instead, it's exactly like an app store. You go there as a user, you will see all the applications that you are allowed to potentially use. You just click on the things that you want to use and everything's happened automatically. There is no IT support, no ITSM involved into these things. The perfect companion for the store, it's the provisioning engine. The provisioning engine starts as soon as you buy or start using an application in the store. Let me give you an example. For example, if it's a backup online solution, you just go to the store, you select, you will see that there is a little bit more than just select. So you configure the way you want to use the application, and as soon as you did this, the backend engine, the provisioning, start provisioning everything on your infrastructure. In this case, I want to be very neutral about infrastructure, because Power can support bare metal, so you can provision application on physical hardware. You can provision application on the major virtualization engine through Power, so that you don't need to know anything about VM, how to build a VM or things like that. And best of all, in my opinion, we also have Cloud Connector currently for Amazon EC2 and for Microsoft Azure. So you can provision your offering on the cloud on these two cloud providers. We will see a little bit more in a few seconds. Okay, so someone shop for your solution. The solution is automatically provisioned on the infrastructure. And then what's happened is that the metering module start working. So we start collecting any information that may be relevant for you. Metering engine works at application level, so you can collect any measure that you want from the application. For example, transaction usage, or I don't know, how many users are created into that application, or whatever it is that you find relevant to measure into your application. But what is interesting, that is into this engine, there is also a monitoring module that allow you to monitor the usage of the infrastructure. For example, CPU time that a specific application is using, or storage, or network bandwidth, or even power consumption. So at the end, all the consumption information that we are collecting goes into the billing engine, so that you can build a real bill on a utility model. So this means that the user is going to pay exactly the usage of the application and the usage of the infrastructure. So, for example, let me give you another example. I'm using a UC communication where I'm doing video conferencing. I just pay for that minutes of conference, but also I pay if I'm using a full HD system for more bandwidth or more CPU or something, and I pay at the end the real consumption. So I'm not forced to pay a subscription. So this is exactly where Power fit. Let me dig a little bit more into the provisioning engine, because I believe it's very relevant. So the provisioning engine, as I was saying before, we can support clearly bare metal. So if you own a data center, you can use Power to deploy any cloud offering on your own data center. But as you can see here, we support the three major hypervisor. VMware, I mean, you can find there everywhere. So, but it's also make you a little bit more neutral compared to the fact that you have to build your own virtual machine. Using Power, you just deploy a template of application, and then the system itself can measure and scale on the needs of the application itself. The same for Xen and Microsoft Hyper-V. But as you can see here, we also support external cloud connectors. So if you don't own your data center, that means a bare metal or on a virtual system, you can also provision your cloud offering on Microsoft Azure or on Amazon EC2. What is interesting about Power also is that the system is designed, since we like to define Power not just as a technical product, but as a tool for enabling you to do business on the cloud. Again, it depends. If you are in a public cloud scenario, you do business because you are charging your user. If you are in a private or hybrid cloud scenario, you still need the information on how much your application and your infrastructure is used, because you want to charge back the information on the right department. So if you are a big bank and you need to know exactly who is using your infrastructure of your application to charge to the right department, the finance, HR, whoever it is. But what is interesting in Power, that's also we build this solution having in mind that in the cloud world there is an ecosystem. It's we call it the multi-layer model. The multi-layer model is designed in Power so that we can fulfill the needs of 4 different actors of the scenario. End user, clearly. End user, do not just think to the end user like the final end user. It can be a CIO, as I was saying before. The CIO can define a budget for a cloud infrastructure of application, and he can share the budget within its department. So saying, for example, in Power, you can define, I'm a CIO, I'm going to control all the expenditure for the cloud that is provisioned through Power, but I want to be sure I'm assigning this budget to my marketing department, and I can control every day really how much they are consuming of the budget that I set for them. Same for a finance department, so as a CEO, you still own the control on the expenditure of the cloud. Cloud brokers means that we help cloud brokers to mash up services from various cloud providers through Power, so that they can build their own offering on the cloud. And most important, cloud provider and cloud developer. Just let me explain a little bit what we mean. Cloud provider, data center, telcos, all the guys that own the infrastructure. Developer is the people that develop application in the cloud. Why is important? Because most of the time what we are seeing that those guys want to partner. They want to partner and build a model where I own the infrastructure, you have an application, let's go to the market together. But how we figure out, how we can get a part of the business that belongs to us. Power is managing automatically all these things. So you can have a revenue sharing model where everything that is consumed by the end user, again, can be a CIO with a full enterprise things behind. I mean, part of the revenue may go to the cloud broker that is brokering the services, and revenue sharing can go between the cloud provider and the cloud developer. At the end, this is a little bit how Power works. You see, app provisioning and hardware provisioning is the two backend part. So an app is provisioned automatically as soon as it also depends from some hardware, or again, hardware in this case, do not just think to physical hardware. Can be a virtual resources, or can be a cloud connection to an existing cloud provider. Then all this information start being metered, if it's an application, to the transaction monitor, and the hardware to the resource monitor. So all this information are collected to the Power metering engine and transformed into the billing. Power also offers connectors through the major ERP and CRM. So if you want to really build a system, you can have your invoice connection, or if you are, there are also connectors for telecommunication telcos system like BSS, OSS. Our system more for telecommunication company, but that's what we do in most of the cases. So I believe that this shift, again, paradigm from selling something on subscription to real consumption. Because what we believe that in the future, people, as soon as they get acquainted with the model of the cloud, they want to have a real consumption model. And Power enables you to do the consumption cloud. So let me spend the last few minutes just giving you a taste of Power. Okay, so this is a double screen. I hope I can figure out because I need to look there. This is a real deployment on Power. So currently it's running on a data center, and it's running on VMware, if I remember, and also have connector for Amazon. So you see, those are all the different model of the platform. So there is a lot of settings, initial settings that you can go in, define your own things, your store. How stores will look like is just a matter of how you decide. For example, this is a real store that we have. Okay, let me go into the store. It's a little bit slow, the internet connection, but I'm sure you are patient. Okay, this is, you can color the store the way you want, define the graphics. But what is interesting, that as soon as you go to select an application, in this case, for example, I'm using the case for a unified communication application, you can see here that there are sliders. So where you can define the number of users that you want to use, the conference room, the time that you are going to use for that application, the administrator user, everything. As you see, as I'm moving the sliders, something's happened here on the right. So there is that information that is displayed to the user, that is the number of credit that are needed for this consumption. So I can predefine my maximum budget for the consumption, and I can preload the credit on my personal account as soon as I register to Power, and I can see immediately the consumption. You can see that something depends from the application itself, for example, the conference room, but something depends from the infrastructure, for example, the time that I'm going to use the application. Let's go back to Power for a second, and let's start seeing exactly what as I was mentioning. So if we go into the store, you will see that everything I was showing just right now in a final format, this is the way how it's designed. So this is the solution we were just looking before. I can go into the solution and modify. Just let me show you something. I know it's a little bit technical, complex, but don't be scared. So this is the application itself, how I define the application. You can see here that there is the provisioning provider. So this is the way the application will look on the store. I have all the parameters for defining the graphics, but also have the application provision. In this case, this is running on a vCenter system, so a VMware. But if I want to switch, I don't need to know anything about, I need to move this virtual machine, I need to do something. I just change, I want to provision this system now in Amazon EC2, so I just click here. So from now, everything will be automatically provisioned on Amazon EC2. So I don't need to know anything how to, connect to Amazon, configure the Amazon Web Services, anything. That's what I did. I just say, it's done. It will take a few seconds. So now everything gets moved from vCenter to Amazon. So that's, you see, I do not have to be a technical person to do all this stuff. Okay, more information about the application. So now it's running there. I have a lot of things that I can define of the application. When I'm going, again, this is as you see application, but again, can be just infrastructure-based solutions. For example, can be backup online or storage room, whatever it is. You see here I can define parameter, for example, for grace period, meaning, okay, as soon as the application expires, how long I will still permit to the user to reactivate the application in this case. Everything is defined here. And you see, what is interesting here is that you can define also the counters. It's a little bit technical, but all the slider that you were seeing before, it's a counter. And you see that the counter is defined here. So you can define a minimum, maximum, default, step, unit, everything is parameterizable. So there is no need to go into the code of the application and change the code of the application. And what is interesting here, that we have a scripting language that can support the way that the credits are consumed. So for example, you can see, you can even read a little bit of language. It's not that complicated. You can see, for example, that if you're going to select the basic configuration, your credit will be consumed in a certain way, but if you change, your credit ratio will change too. Consider that every counters can be linked to each other. In fact, you see that in this case, the activation counters, that is about the activation cost, is also linked to another counter, that is the number of participants. So your price will be established depending on the things that the user select. At the same time, for the time. So, for example, I can define, an activation for time, and I can define a rule for being consumed on the time. User counters, billing counters. You can define as much counters as you want. You just go in, you add another one, and start configuring your counters. So everything starts to be collected by the engine. There are a lot of information. I don't want to go into the single detail. It's just an overview. Okay, let's jump for a second now on the provisioning. As I was showing you before, to decide where we want to provision the application, we just select. Here is where we configure the connection to the infrastructure. So in this case, I have Hyper-V or Amazon EC2 that I was using before. And you see that for each single application, for Power, you don't need just to have one. So it depends. For some application, for example, you may decide to run it on VMware. For another application, you may decide to run on Amazon. For another things, you may decide to go on Azure, whatever it is. As soon as you finish up with configuring your provisioning, that's the two things that start before the billing is the metering and the monitoring. So let me give you just an idea of the metering and the monitoring. Okay, let's start with the monitoring. The monitoring goes down to the infrastructure. So you are seeing here the list of all the devices that are into this data center. You can see there are a lot, so it's a single point of view for all your data center. This is the physical level of your data center. So we're not just looking at a single application, we're looking at a physical data center. Please consider that anything can be monitored through Power. For example, you see that here somewhere, I have even some IP camera. I can monitor IP camera. I can collect information from an IP camera and decide to build something on IP camera. As soon as I click on that things, it shows me the status of that device, so I can know exactly what that device is doing. And I can define also the things that I'm going to monitor. In these cases, you see, it's an IP camera, so I don't have a lot of things that I can count, but I can monitor through an FTP protocol and HTTP protocol some information. And I can go in, and this is a virtual group. At this point, I can see exactly all the information on that monitoring going on the system and how those are collected. There are a lot of things that we can go in more in detail. You see that we already offer connectors for major applications. So you can see DB2, Oracle, HTTP system, SMTP, SQL Server. So you don't need to build your own stuff. It's already built in the system. But what is interesting that everything here, it's open API. So if you have your own platform, your own infrastructure, you just connect Power with the open API that we support, and you start collecting measurement through an open API. So it's very easy. It's a scripting language open API. Let's get out from a second from the physical monitoring. There is a lot to go into. As you may imagine, not just the device list. I can filter, see the system, go into the single detail of machines, have all my asset information. Okay, let's go to Windows. Maybe we have more. Yeah, you see, for example, I can go in a single machine. This is down. I can go to this one. In this case, for example, I can go also through VMI, so I can collect information through VMI, physical. Oh, I forgot to mention that Power can work in two ways. Agentless, so we do not install anything physically in your data center infrastructure. By agent, it means that with agent we are able to capture a lot more information. For example, if you want to capture bandwidth, clearly we need an agent. But in this case, it's a Java agent, so it's nothing complex. We can capture, this is capturing, or we support VMI. So in this case, we are capturing information through VMI. But let me give you something interesting. So we are right now looking at the physical structure of our data center. If we go into the real-time monitor, we will have a different kind of view. In this case, we will have a virtual representation of all our infrastructure. Please remember that what we are looking here is not only a physical data center. It can be something running on Amazon EC2. So in this case, you have a full view of your cloud infrastructure. How it's working right now. The CPU, this is a global view, total time, real-time resource. So this is currently right now the CPU that is used, the memory, the storage, the network. But I can start drilling down. So for example, I can go to the process real-time, and you will see a different kind of view. In this case, I'm looking at my data center, cloud infrastructure, from a virtual perspective. So those are the applications that I've configured into the store, and this is the consumption that the application are doing on my infrastructure. So I don't need to monitor the single PC because I want to know exactly, okay, those users, those group of users that are running on that application, what are they consuming? And then I can just start drilling down and having more detail, for example, on storage and all the single information. Okay, it will come up in a few seconds. It's a little bit slow. Okay, this is the single detail. Okay, here is the storage by application. Then, through the metering, I know the guys want me to stop. Through the metering, I can even go into the single details. So where we were here, we were here on at the virtual level, looking at the cloud offering. Now I can go to the single detail of that offering, of that CPU, of that machine, and dig down and see exactly all the history of the consumption from the CPU for the different offering that I have on the cloud. I was very fast. If you want to have more information, please come to our booth. We are just around the corner. Our company is Solgenia. I think I have somewhere. Okay. Here it is. We are the booth 516. So just come, ask, and we will give you a little bit more detail. Thank you for attending the session. If you have questions, I'm here, clearly.